Asante Sana Wakale. Thank you for this opportunity to be here, to be alive, to be present, to attempt to be more present in this space at this time. My name is Ukumbwa Sauti, and I've decided to just do I normally do a write-up from time to time on on what year we're coming into or moving through. Generally, I do it at the beginning. And as a initiated Dagara Elder, it's important to me to share some of my, I guess, perspectives and what I feel in my heart about a particular year. And this year, I was called not to do it, or I was called to do it at the end. And this could have been a week from now, but it just kept pushing for right now. And I'm watching it say 11:31 on the clock here at the end of the calendar year 2020. So I guess the first thing that really comes up for me, and this is an Earth year. The zero at the end of the 2020 identifies it in the Dagara cosmology as an Earth year under the masculine energy of that element, which is named Tingan. And that energy is very much about holding space and about protection. So I came into this year with that energy, with that knowledge, with that feeling, that knowing. And we came into this period of this pandemic, this coronavirus pandemic. And we've been losing a lot of lives from that, from complications, from any number of kinds of violence that have also been coming along with this. I raised the names of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all too many more African people who are being killed by racist police bullets during this year. But there are many other things going on in this world also. There are many other things going on with the earth itself. We might say, these kind of cataclysmic kinds of things that have been going on with the earth herself and himself. And so this awareness of the energies of the earth have been very key for me this time around. And just for a little explanation about the earth element, in its broader sense, it is about this protective nature of the earth, and also this ability to hold space and protect the earth's children, which we are all that. All of us humans are that, and that's our perspective from the Dagara perspective. But also it is an energy, as we expand into the feminine realm of earth. It is also about community. It's also about identity, about compassion, about caretaking, and about our identity, who we really are, and being grounded, being centered, having our feet on the ground. I'm always reminded that culture grows from the earth itself, that our feet on the ground are very key to our understanding of who we are as human beings. And we could say that so many things that were happening in this year were upending for us, that took us off our feet, if you will. But I think this year called us into an awareness of ourselves, of our bodies, what we needed to be healthy, what we need to be strong. And I don't mean just on the physical realm, though the energy of Timbalu and Tingan, earth energy, is very much about that, about the body and what we need to take care of ourselves. But there are some deeper elements that were coming forward within this context. And part of that was, how are we seeing each other as human beings? How are we seeing each other in our own communities? How are we seeing ourselves reflected in the face of the human being, the human becoming on this earth? So when the pandemic, I don't want to say hit, when it grew upon us, when it became the flowering of this experience that became so challenging for us as we lost lives in so many different ways. And I want to flip that to another awareness, that we were seeing ancestors created in a way that we hadn't been created before. So again, this element of, or this uh, character of being able to look into ourselves and see who we are, to see again in the mirror of each other who we are, but to take care of each other. Clearly, I don't have to say a lot about that. That we had to raise our awareness about how we take care of each other, and that's not again just about the pandemic. That's about at least the corona pandemic. It is about the pandemics of racism and colonialism, of white supremacy, of misogynoir, of misogyny, of patriarchy, of ableism. These pandemics of transphobia and homophobia are key in pulling apart our awareness of our humanity. They occlude our ability to see each other and to feel each other as human beings, to feel each other in our hearts. So these things that were happening, I mean, black trans women were being killed still in great numbers during this year, as in other years. Unarmed black men and women were being killed still, even though we were in so-called lockdown or stay-at-home orders or stay away, physical distancing, I want to call it, not social distancing, because our job this year was to be socially intimate, to be close to each other, to really feel each other within our communities and outside of the boundaries of our direct and hopefully safer communities, the ones that are defined by our ancestors and the ones that are defined by our principled and loving and compassionate choice. And we know so many of us have that, as opposed to maybe a national or a geographic connection to each other. But still, we were being called into that compassion for each other, that understanding and awareness for each other. Um, and one of the things that came up for me recently about this year, about 2020, that I felt I needed to say up, a little bit closer than to the end, but that 2020 is not going away. The effects of 2020 are not going away. The call of the earth element for us to be in deeper community with each other is not going away. It's not going away right now. And in a sense, we have to keep it alive. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear because so many of us want to look at 2020 and get rid of it. It's funny that my background just blipped. The image of the earth behind me just blipped as I said that. That's just something. But that we have to stay true to ourselves as human beings, to our identities, all of who we are, all of who we are, and all of who we are together in the community of the global village on this earth, and also in our regions and in our cities and in our towns and our tribes and nations, in our villages. We have to stay true to that. We have to struggle against anything that would take us away from that. But that call from the earth to be together in community and to be in caretaking is not going to go away. We still have to hold that. And I think we still have to hold that pain that came forward in this year. The earth herself and himself does not let that go. And there have been many voices that have said the pandemic showed up because of our break from nature, because of and I will say, the European colonial capitalist, unlimited growth fantasy that has been forced through economics, through military power, police power, political power, upon most of the people upon this earth. So that destructive force, that destructive modernity, that destructive force of capitalism and colonialism is what is destroying the nature of this earth and destroying ecosystems, destroying whole species of animals. We saw rainforest burning. We saw large swaths of land burning this year. But again, something that happened in this year raised our consciousness, if we're able to see it and feel it, about this connection to the earth. And that's why we have to bring so much of what we are still learning about 2020, what we're still learning about ourselves, into this next year. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means to 2021 in the water year, the year of Kwan. But Again, these issues of caretaking, of advocacy for each other, of allyship, of creating accomplices that help us to fight these oppressions that not only pull our own earth bodies apart, our own awarenesses of ourselves, our own communities apart, that's in a sense, a resonant energy to what has been happening to the earth herself, that there's been a cracking open. And yes, we can look at volcanoes happening recently. We can look at a friend of mine reported that an earthquake just happened just today, or, minutes before I started talking. Um, so, so we need to look at these cleavages that are being created by the oppressions that have and the violence that have been set upon this earth. But that's part of what we were able to see. Again, one of the things we were able to see that people were starting to go hungry, to face evictions, things like that, that were threatening not only their bodies, the bodies of our community, our communities, and our villages on this earth. So we were called into understanding in a much more deeper and intimate way, what do people actually need? What do we really need this time around this year? And again, that's not going to stop, on January 1st, 2021. We have to hold that energy. And in a way, we have to bring 220 with us. And I guess that's the challenge that I'm feeling, and the challenge that I needed to say out loud. That we are challenged to not wipe it away. That there are lessons from this year that we need to hold deeply in our heart, deeply in our mind, deeply in our awareness in our bodies. That can inform us into how to continue our long walk on this earth toward peace and justice in a powerful and in a compassionate way. Um, and I am looking at notes. There was something that I saw today. I watch a lot of nature documentaries, and there was one that looked at the Earth from the sky, and they were looking at the Earth from satellites, and they would go a little bit closer down and see things and start to tell stories about places in the Congo or Turtle Island, North America, if you will, and other places around the Earth. And one of the things that dawned on me was that vision of the Earth is not actually the thing that's helping us right now. It's been said that one, kind of iconic image from space of the Earth helped us to really see ourselves on this big blue marble as one family. I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened at all. And I think the problem of that was we were getting further and further away in our consciousness from the sensual lessons and awareness and embodiment of what the earth actually is. The earth is here. With our feet on the ground, we needed to get closer. We needed to get dirtier. We needed to feel it. We needed to feel the warmth and the coolness of the earth. We need to feel water. We need to feel trees. We needed to feel each other. We needed to feel each other's hearts. We need to feel each other's struggles. We need to feel what it feels like to look in each other's eyes as we feel pain and as we cause pain, and to grow through this process of pain. I was having conversation with a friend about, calling people out and calling people in, around oppression, around privilege, and around power. But something came to me about how are we calling people through, and how are we holding them still as we bring each other into healing around these things. So, and I'm reminded of what the earth calls us to do. Because it holds all of us. It holds all of us. And as so many indigenous people from Turtle Island say, it calls all our relations together, the winged ones, the finned ones, the four-leggeds, and us two-leggeds together to understand each other in an intimate way, not from the sky, not from the top of the canopy even, if you will, but together from wherever we are on the face of this earth, from this level together, not looking down on each other, not thinking we're better in some kind of hierarchy than the rest of the things on this planet, because we're not better than the rest of these things on the planet, and we are no better than other people on the face of this earth. So we have to find how to do that, called by the earth, to move through these challenges together. And even if we have to keep our our communities safe from other communities. And let's just say that's really true. You know, it's really true that African people need to find our own spaces as we struggle peace and liberation. And for women and for the LGBTQIA community to find their spaces of safety as they walk forward, or particular nations to find those, if you will, affinity groups, national affinity groups, tribal affinity groups, and to be protected in those spaces. That is not something unbeknownst to the earth. The earth knows all about that. The earth knows all about holding communities together so that they can stay safe as they move about and come back to places of rest, of centering, and of grounding. So there's a lot here that we needed to know, that we needed to hear from the earth, that we needed to feel from the earth. And I have felt that we may have missed that opportunity. Within the year 2020, a lot was going on. But I think a lot of us are coming into our awareness of our place, our tenancy here on this earth, and how our ancestors have guided us to be here right now together. They planned this, and we are the right ones to be here. We are the right community to be on this earth, but we have a lot of work to do, and that's why we have to carry the message of the earth like the earth has always carried us, from year to year, from space to space. And we have to carry these messages from the earth. We have to continue to listen. We have to continue to feel. We have to continue to emote. We have to grieve this year. We have to feel this year, because I think a lot of us have been dodging what it meant. You know, we saw a lot of so-called white allies jump up into certain spaces, you know, as when we saw George Floyd be killed. And as we knew, Breonna Taylor and too many more have been killed, and all too many indigenous people have been killed and harmed, you know, and it could be at the end of a racist police gun, or it could be in a hospital. And please forgive me for not remembering the name of the African doctor who died recently whilst warning us about the trials and tribulations she was going through in the United States of American settler colony medical hospital system. And we know that happened with an indigenous woman also not too long ago. So we're asked to move through these struggles with the awareness and wisdom of the earth, and what the earth has to offer us, and to make sure that we all get what we need, because the earth wants us all to have what we need. But we know that there are certain powers and structures and systems that reduce our ability to access that take away our liberation, our sovereignty, our power as human beings, our power together, our power of interdependence together. All right, as human beings and as beings becoming on this earth with other beings, whether it be trees or birds or worms or eagles or dandelions, what have you. So that there is this call that we need to bring the earth with us into our future. We have to carry its message with us in our heart and in our bodies and in our communities, and if we can, in our nations. And it might be said that the earth really does know no nation, but it knows its children. It knows our names, and it knows how we feel, and it feels like we do, and we should feel like it does. So maybe these are some of the things that we may have learned and felt during this year, this Earth year 2020, this very challenging year. And maybe some of the things that we need to think about and feel about and move about and be active about as we go into the next year. And I'm realizing I'm talking way longer than I thought I might. And some of you may be laughing if you're even here in this moment, because you know I could go twice as long. But you know, maybe that's just part of the flow, which is a great segue into the next year, 2021, which is a water year. It's the year of Kwan, the water element. And water is about unity, togetherness. Those molecules of water seek each other naturally. spiritually. They seek each other, you know. And we know this by seeing two drops of water on a table. And when they get close enough, they become one. So there's this element of, and this character of unity. There's the character of grief, of deep grief, as we get into the energy of water, into this new year. And as I said before, this may be a time right now, and we may have already been grieving without the tears flowing. And this may be a time for us to let those tears come through, to let the flow of the energy, anything that was created in blockages or pain or obstruction for us during this year, that can be washed away in the tsunami of humanity, the tsunami of love that can come from us, the tsunami of understanding and transcendence that is a part of the human being on this earth as long as we've been here. So we are not different from that energy, but we are also that tenderness of the pond, of the calm river, the flow of the calm river, that sound that gets emitted from that moving water, of stones that guide it through its path. Water is also about peace, amani in the Kiswahili language. It is also about cooling down, calming down, slowing down, being flexible, being a shapeshifter. You know, water can be ice, water can be steam, and water can be a little puddle on the street, or it can be the mighty oceans. So there's something about shape-shifting, about creativity that can come out of this year. There's also something about focus here in this year that we can come to, again, informed by what the earth was trying to teach us for at least 365 days. Now that's on top of millennia of our presence here on this earth. But if we are to say that 2020 was anything, it was trying to teach us about ourselves, to teach us about what's important, and to think about what we are going to bring into flow in this next year, even as we carry some of it with us into this next year. You know, the Mississippi or the Nile or any great river, the Amazon, brings silt from its earlier life upstream into where it comes into what we might call home, into the oceans. So we have to bring some of this with us. And, you know, that silt feeds that wetland, that delta region. It feeds it and makes it a rich place of growth and cleansing, which is an empowerment of nature. And it's an empowerment of the human being to think about it that way, I think, and to feel about it and act about it that way, live with it that way, to actually bring these consciousnesses, awarenesses into our lives and life ways. This is why we have to listen to our ancestors, not just ones from a year ago or 10 years or 20 years ago, but 100 years, 1,000 years ago, and know how they made the world so we could be here 1,000 years, 10,000 years into the future. They thought about us in the flow of life, you know, guided by the energy of water. You know, that's why Africans pour libation as a connection to those ancestors, as a gift to those ancestors. But what is it that we're going to bring into flow? And are we going to be able to feel this deep grief of what 2020 was for all of us? Can we count the names, see the faces, feel the loss of those that we lost? Again, no matter if it was out of a racist police gun, or in the hospital system, or forgotten by a dysfunctional colonial government on top of Turtle Island, the so-called United States. No matter how people passed on, and there were so many tragic ways that we have, how are we going to bring this grief to bear? How are we going to move this energy through us, through our bodies? You know, how are we going to connect to the rivers and to the oceans, to our waterways, to guide us into this energy of grief, so that we can clear away that which we do not need, you know, so that we can bring the sustenance, you know, that we can accept the rain in a beautiful way, you know, into our earth bodies, the offering of rain and snow and water in the year 2021 is, and what a gift, because water, is life. Water is life. It's not just the hashtag. It's a true statement. It's a true statement. So again, as we come into this year of water awareness, of the blessings of Kwan, the blessings of water, um, how do we come into focus about what happened? We have to talk about that. We have to feel about it. We have to dance about it. We have to make music about it. We have to play all the drums that our ancestors taught us to create, whether we're in Arctic regions or in tropical regions, or if we're in a city. Those drums should be playing. And we should be bringing forth the grief that helps us to be here in a healthy way. So I think there's something to think about here. I think there's something to feel about. And there's something to act upon, to move upon, to take in the energy of water, to move ourselves into being in softness with each other, with ourselves. There's so much that came out of the movement for peace and justice and liberation within people of color, African people, not only in the United States settler colony, but all around the world, around self-care. Beautiful earth message, right? And then to be followed up with the energy of water that is the sustenance of our very presence here. The very sustenance of our presence here. If the earth did not have water, it would become dust and wash away. Just blow away in the wind. And we wouldn't have a home without this water. So we're coming into a year that's very important for us in our awareness as humans, in our awareness of the interdependence that we have with every single being. I read the title of a report that said that bees are possibly the most important animal on Earth. And so we need to think about the interdependence of the beehive and what that means, and also how they're called to create, let's say, a watery food for themselves, the honey, the sweetness, of life in a way, but that they are also bound by liquid. And so are we, no matter what side of the river we are on, no matter which side of the pond. And I'm not saying, dancing off into the future, pretending that we are one together. We have to make that happen. We have to make that happen, inspired by the greatest of our cultures, the greatest things that our ancestors have taught us for these millions of years on this earth. That's a lot of wisdom. That's a lot of healing. So we've got a lot to do, and we can do this together, Pamoja. We can do this together. We must do it together. We are called into community, and we are called taking care of each other emotionally this year, and to wash away that which we do not need. And we know even structurally, systemically, we're getting rid of dams on rivers. We're letting the flow go. We're bringing the flow back to the rivers. We need to do that in the human being also, and how we relate to each other. How do we let our flow go safely, with correct boundaries, political, personally, and otherwise? That's important. Consent, issues of consent. How do we do that? Issues of understanding of each other's struggles and our trauma that have been created for us and at us and through us, on this earth. Not just in 2020. It's not the only year that ever was. It's not the only year that's going to ever be. But here we are, moving into, from 2020. We made it, and so did our ancestors. They didn't leave. Though we're grieving over their loss and with us, and we need to carry them with us too, because they were given birth by this earth too. And the consciousness of what they brought us, the lessons and the wisdom that they brought us, and even the challenges we need to bring forward. And we're bringing that forward into the year 2021, which I hope is nothing but a year of joy and renewed power, loving power, compassionate power, not of unearned privilege and violent power, but a new energy of freedom, peace, and justice. Interestingly enough, I hear people yelling outside. I think it's 12 midnight as I wrap up. Interesting, the timing. But I hope to see you in this flow of 2021, this water year. I hope to feel you in this flow. And I hope we can all feel each other in a new way, in a renewed way that is healing, and that brings awareness to our struggles and brings light to the path to where we know we all need to be, into that place of peace and justice and freedom and liberation. So thank you for even giving us 5 minutes if you did. But if you went all the way with this, thank you. I don't know that I deserve that time from you, but I thank you for being with it, and I would love to hear from you. I'd like us to have these conversations about this and so much more. I'm just one tributary into the system of waters that all lead us home to life with each other. Thank you. Asante Vodka. Jai Jeff. Gracias. See you soon.